Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ruminations. I'm your host, Bobby Gill. Today, we're headed to the rugged, windswept ridges of Mendocino County, California, to talk about what it really means to steward a vineyard regeneratively, not just in name, but in measurable ecological outcomes. In this episode, we'll explore how a family run, off grid vineyard at 2,400 feet became the first in the world to receive land to market verification, how holistically managed livestock, cover crops, and other regenerative strategies are changing the playbook for viticulture, and why the wine industry's deep reliance on additives and practice based certifications is ripe for a radical reset. To walk us through it all, our guest today is Michael Frey of Mariah Vineyards and Dirt Wine. Together with his wife, Nicole, who unfortunately couldn't make it for the interview today because she's taking care of their newborn baby, they manage Mariah Vineyards, which is the world's first EOV verified vineyard. And Nicole had the distinct pleasure of growing up on it. Her parents established it over 40 years ago. And then in 2021, Mariah Vineyards produced the first ever land to market verified wines. They've navigated the learning curves of transitioning a vineyard to regenerative. They've had the hard conversations to bring the older generation along for the ride. And most recently, they've launched Dirt Wine. It's a new wine brand focused on radical transparency and nature positive outcomes, all of which we'll get into in this episode. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Michael Frey of Mariah Vineyards and Dirt Wine. But first, a word from our sponsors. Michael Frey, welcome to Ruminations. How you doing today, sir?
Good. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. How is life with a 4-month-old?
Uh, Extremely exciting, extremely intense. But now with 4 months, there's a lot of interaction happening, a lot of laughing happening, a lot of moving, and all the exploration about the beauty of life. So
Hmm.
I'm deeply in love and really excited. A bit tired, but deeply in love. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think in all of our worlds, it's all about adding complexity to the holes that we manage, and you have definitely added a layer of complexity to the operation that you guys have going on out there with a newborn. So, congratulations on the new baby.
Um, Thank you very much. You too, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I've got a 2-month-old. Michael's got a 4-month-old. So we're both starting to get some sleep. If we have bags under our eyes, that would be why. All right. Well, let's not bore folks with our personal family matters, but let's get into regenerative viticulture, which is what we're here to discuss today. Unfortunately, your wife Nicole could not make it because she's taking care of the baby, but you guys farm at her parents' vineyard where she grew up in Mendocino County in California, north of San Francisco. Give us an overview of Mariah Vineyards, I guess possibly even Dirt Wine, but we'll get into that
Yes.
in a bit. And just kind of like where you're located, what it's like, and how you guys arrived to where you are today.
Mariah Vineyards is a family-owned and operated vineyard in the Mendocino Ridge appellation. As you mentioned, it's north of San Francisco. It's sitting at about 2,400 feet on the first ridge line to the Pacific Ocean. And we are extremely passionate about regenerative viticulture. So we farm without chemicals. We are working with you guys, our land to market verified, integrated cheap, and did all the magic that encompasses this topic. My parents-in-law, Dan and Vicky, founded and built this vineyard from the ground up. So it's an absolutely amazing amazing journey actually from to move up there on the ridge top off the grid on the spring. and to put in a vineyard. If you ever have been on the vineyard, that means you have to build a deer fence. You have to plant rootstocks. You have to irrigate rootstocks. You have to build a trellis. Then you have to create the whole infrastructure that actually live up there. And then on this journey, they raised 4 kids out in the woods, in this beautiful, beautiful off-grid place. Uh, that's about Mariah. That's about Mariah. My wife Nicole and I, we stepped in. Now about 6 years ago. Uh, mostly because we got really sparked with regenerative agriculture, and knowing that there's a place or a vineyard where we can farm and try and make our own experience and try to push the needle and push frontiers. That was absolutely beautiful. So we went back to the vineyard and started working on that.
Mm. Yeah, and we've been connected now for a few years. Mariah Vineyards was the first ever ecological outcome verified vineyard in the global program, and then that led you guys to develop the first ever land to market verified wines, which were released in 2021. Is that right?
2020, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And everything you guys do is dry farmed. You guys
Yes.
do cover crops. You integrate grazing livestock. What else? Give us the stack of the different things that are happening on your vineyard that create the end product. What are your different farming methods and techniques that are in place?
Uh, I will dive really deep into that,
Hmm.
and I will provide you with. I would like to speak about the sparks too. So
Okay.
how did we? So how
Great.
did we? So how did we get there? If that's
Yeah,
possible.
let's do that. Yeah, let's not get right into the nitty gritty. We'll start with the
Yes.
path. Okay, wonderful.
Yes. So my wife and I we met traveling in Peru. I was on a world trip. She took a few weeks off. So we catched up in Peru and fell in love, traveled forward and backward around the globe and then to Switzerland, and then had to make a decision actually on which side of the ocean that we live. I'm originally from Switzerland, that's why I have this accent. So, and it's quite a distance between Switzerland and California. So knowing that we want to stay together, we had to make a decision and decided that we live in California. Uh, on this path, we had the possibility to meet and connect with a lot of different people. One of these people was Paul Dolan.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you know Paul Dolan or if you knew Paul Dolan. Paul Dolan was president of Fetzer, and he was an amazing visionary and pioneer in sustainable organic biodynamic farming. He was a big believer in Rudolf Steiner, and then in the end of his life, he was on the Regenerative Organic Alliance to actually create the ROC certification. So he was really looking forward, and he was really into regenerative viticulture. So during this period, when I moved to California, we had we had lunch once with him. We were exploring different avenues how we can move forward with our lives. And I vividly remember meeting him at in Hillsburg, and his talk about regenerative viticulture, regenerative agriculture, the potential to bring back biodiversity, to sequester carbon, to to farm in favor of life, to create flourishing ecosystems while producing actually absolutely amazing flavors and nutrient dense products. And Nicole and I were so inspired. We're so inspired by this lunch that we started digging in. We actually went down the rabbit hole. We read about regenerative viticulture. We read about the practices and never stopped on this path ever since. One of the recommendations that Paul did during this launch was to go to Boulder, to the Regenerative Earth Summit. And lucky us, we stayed in the same hotel like Will Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an additional spark, because we had some glasses of wine at the bar, and he spoke about his experience. And said, you guys have to meet the Savory Institute. You guys have to meet the hub in California, Abby. And that's how the whole process started with Savory, with land to market, with piloting the ecological outcome verification. And with a deep dedication to tracking outcomes and to learn as we go, to embrace complexity and holistic land management.
Was there anything specific at that Regenerative Earth Summit in 2019, I believe you said it was? I think I was there at that event because it's just right up the
Yes.
road from me.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I was not at the hotel bar with you
Yeah.
guys, although I have closed down many a hotel bar with Will
Yeah.
Harris at
Yes.
different conferences. So I know how
Yes.
that goes. Definitely
Yes.
a blast. But what was it about that event that really lit a fire under you guys to go down that path? Was there any particular talk or anyone that you met there that gave you a light bulb, aha moment, more so than these talks that you were having previously with Paul Dolan?
Paul Dolan was the spark, and the Regenerative Earth Summit was finding the tribe. It sounds really cheesy, but it was being in a community that all worked in the same direction. It was the different talks that were there. It was the different people that were there. It was it was more to see people and to speak with people where values align. So it was extremely motivating. It was extremely motivating. There was a talk of a doctor that spoke about the potential the potential of regenerative agriculture with health, in connection with health. That sparked Nicole tremendously. Nicole is an emergency nurse. There was Will Harris, also Nicole, that connected with him. So I'm more the hermit of the gang, and she's more the outgoing socializer.
Yeah, that's more of the strategy here with the podcast today. Is we want to hear more from Michael. So
Yes,
leave Nicole out of it
sad.
for this interview.
It's sad that she's not here. She's
I know.
extremely passionate and full of fire for
She
this
is.
topic.
Yes.
So it was Paul was the spark. Boulder was finding the tribe that actually led us back to Nicole's parents, to Nicole's parents, and to say, hey, that's such an amazing field. We have to do that. Are you willing to do an experiment with us? Are you willing that we come up on the vineyard, that we support you guys, that we bring a lot of innovation and craziness to this place? Are you willing to go down this path with us? And my parents-in-law said, heck yeah.
Now, when you guys got this spark, were you guys already involved in management on the vineyard at all? Or no, you weren't. Okay, so you're
No,
meeting with Paul Dolan, you go to this Regenerative Earth Summit. Nicole is an ER nurse. You guys meet while
yes,
traveling the world. Was your
yes.
head in agriculture at all? Were there talks about going back to the vineyard and making a life there? Kind of give us a little bit of the timeline and where you guys were just prior to the spark.
Uh, I have a background in hospitality and marketing. I was blessed to work in a really cool food company in Switzerland, in Liechtenstein. I was leading sales and marketing teams, and I have a tremendous passion for food, business development, innovation, consumer. So everything on the consumer side, actually, but far away from agriculture. Uh, Nicole grew up on the vineyard, has a background in agriculture because she lived up there,
Totally.
saw what her parents are doing, but has a passion for nursing and the health and yeah for emergency nursing actually specifically. So she didn't study agriculture. She has a background in marine biology, uh, but then found her passion in nursing and worked in this realm. So we are far from agriculture, but deeply interested in food. What's in food? How is food grown? What do we put in our bodies?
Hmm.
How can we live an as healthy and as fulfilling life as possible? So we are away from agriculture, but still connected to agriculture. So when we learned about the regenerative uh, agriculture movement and its potential to grow nutrient dense food. And Nicole realized that a lot of things that are coming into the emergency room are actually preventable. So she always says there's nothing better than Western medicine in when shit really hits the fan, right? To keep you alive, to do that. But there's also a lot of stuff that comes in there that would be preventable if you would have a healthy lifestyle and if you would have access to good nutrient dense foods. So the passion was here, and I think it was just required the spark. So I was working at Mariah during the transition time when I came from Switzerland to California. I wasn't allowed to work because I didn't have a work visa, but I was able to volunteer. So I actually volunteered up on the vineyard and found a deep passion for farming a crop actually. So I'm really passionate about the environment, and I'm really passionate about food. And as soon as you have the possibility to go out and to farm a crop and to combine both passions, I think that really did it for me, and the health aspect and the farming aspect did it for Nicole.
Mm.
A long answer for a short question. I'm sorry for that.
Quite all right. It's a podcast. We can go as long as we want.
Okay.
Apologies to the listeners if this goes long. Or
Yes.
you're welcome. I don't know. Either or.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you realize that there is more that can be done in viticulture, and you guys are excited to try this on the vineyard that Nicole has grown up on in Mendocino. What are those conversations like then when you come back to the vineyard and you're talking to Nicole's parents who have, farmed this land for 40 years, who, built it from the ground up? How did those conversations go? And Yeah, I guess, yeah. How did the conversations go?
Really good. It was a spark that jumped over. So my parents-in-law farmed the vineyard in a really good way. So far away from hardcore industrial agriculture. So I don't think that our step was really big to push the needle. And my parents-in-law were really supportive. They were really excited to see a kid of theirs intrigued actually with farming. And I also think that they welcomed that a son-in-law and the kid actually support on the ground. It's not just we are coming back and we have this crazy idea and now we implement.
Hmm.
It was more a discussion. We have crazy ideas or not crazy ideas, just normal ideas. But we are also happy to be on the ground and to help and to do all that stuff. So, and I think 5 years ago it was and still is a win-win situation.
Hmm.
So it's a win-win situation for my parents-in-law because they have support, and they have people that research, that connect, that build a network, that reach out to universities, that have research on the ground, that collect data all over the place to push the needle, and to extend the life of the wines and the vineyard, and therefore the legacy. And it's a win for Nicole and I because we were able to execute on our ideas. So we are not talking theoretical regenerative viticulture idea. We are executing regenerative viticulture idea, are learning, are doing a lot of mistakes, and had also quite some success with it. So.
Hmm. So what did that path to that transition to a more regenerative approach on the vineyard? What did that look like? What were the first steps that you guys took, and what followed?
Uh, the first step I think was a mindset shift, uh, from existing farming to holistic, long-term perspective. Uh, it's still the biggest discussion that we have, is the mindset. It's not the execution. And then we started with soil health. So we read a lot about soil health, and we started to take measurements to create a baseline on our property, to actually know what's going on. I'm a really big fan. About outcomes. It's maybe also from my past. I was in sales and in marketing. I was managing my teams based on facts and on figures, and I was always really interested in knowing what's going on. So why not on a ranch? Land to market and the ecological outcome verification was the perfect fit for us. So we traveled previously and looked for something like that, and you guys actually provided for us quite the tailor-made fit for us. So it was quite exciting. So the first step was the baseline. We had the UV hub on the property. We did 10 short-term sites. We did 3 long-term sites. We have 30 acres of vineyard. We have 30 acres of pasture, and we have forest. So we did this measurement, and on this base, we started to implement practices. We increased the biodiversity of our cover crop tremendously. We implemented sheep in our system.
When you
we
say
switched.
you changed or you increased the diversity of your cover crops, so does that
Yes,
mean her parents were using cover crops prior
yes.
to you guys coming in? Okay, so their land management seemed to be moving in this direction in that it was dry farmed, they had cover crops, organic, I assume. And so your first take was to do the EOV baseline, then get a greater diversity of cover crops in the mix. Then you were saying integrating sheep. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Just
So
wanted
no,
to
no,
get
no.
a sense. Yep.
It's all good. So in viticulture, I think cover crops are, that's just basic. That's what people do. So it's
Mm.
not a step. It's not uh, uh, quite an innovation to implement cover crops in
Okay.
viticulture. I think pretty much everybody is doing that.
Hmm.
Especially legumes, nitrogen fixers, and stuff like that. And then there's mostly in viticulture, it's plow down mixes where they plow it down at a certain time of the season. But cover crops is general. That doesn't mean that the biodiversity of the cover crop is really wide. So it's quite similar stuff that people are using. And my parents-in-law did that too, of course. Cultivated underneath the wine rows, like over 90% or 99% of viticulture is doing. And then in the past, the rows between the wines were disked too, and then a bit farther down you disked every other row every other year.
Hmm.
And I think the big changes that we brought in was 100% ground cover. So to get rid of any cultivation in any place on the vineyard. So not just where you drive with the tractor, but also underneath the wine rows,
Mm.
uh, especially in a dry farmed system. So my parents were irrigating the vineyard when they developed the vineyard, and for the first years when they had the vineyard, and then while the drip when there was a moment in time where the drip lines started deteriorating. So a decision had to made: do we actually keep on going with irrigation, or can we get rid of it? And my parents-in-law made a really smart move. Got professionals involved that did neutron probes on the property for several years actually, and showed them that the irrigation is not necessary up on the site where they are. So they were able to turn off the water. But the long-term perspective of them was always to farm the place without irrigation. The right rootstock was selected, the right spacing was selected, like they did in the past. So their mindset went in this direction. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so you increase the diversity of your cover crops.
Yes.
You get 100% ground cover. The integration of livestock, I guess I'm curious there. And here's where I probably am out of my normal domain. I'm not as familiar with viticulture and how these aspects work with livestock. So when you're integrating animals into a vineyard, are there considerations that need to be made with respect to timing of when these grazing events are happening or the proximity of the livestock to the vines? How does that work?
It's all about context, right? It's all about where you are uh, and what you do. In viticulture in general, we can bring in livestock until bud break. depending on your trellis system, depending on how high that your vines are. Bud break in our case is about April, because sheep like buds, and you don't want to have sheep eating your crop.
Hmm.
So we can graze vineyards as soon as we have some grass that they can eat until bud break. There's quite a movement currently in viticulture. Kelly Mulville from the Piscinus Ranch did a high trellis system. Halter Ranch has now a high trellis system. And there's more and more plantings where they raise actually the vines and the
Hmm.
trellis, that you can graze sheep 365 days a year. Uh, I think really interesting, but we can't just take our vineyard and raise it. So we are limited with that
Hmm.
until buds break.
So, do you have sheep that are on the property year round, or are you getting contract grazers to come in and
Uh,
graze in the vineyards?
Contract grazers.
Okay.
Out of several reasons. We are surrounded by forest and mountain lions and bears, so it requires knowledge, and it requires sheepdogs that are there. And then on the other hand, I'm on one side a farmer, and on the other side I'm a son-in-law. So I can't just. I'm not living up on the property, so I can't just bring up 50, 100, 200 sheep all year long and then leave and tell my parents-in-law, thank you very much. So no, that's it's contract grazing what we do.
Gotcha. Um, are there any aspects of the old school way of farming that Nicole's parents have done for decades that you guys still maintain that maybe isn't as regenerative as you would like it to be, but because of tradition or legacy, there are some things that remain in management?
It's a process. Oh, that's such a neutral. That's such a
Man, you
Swiss
are so
answer.
Switzerland right now.
That's such a Swiss answer. It's a process. When my parents-in-law farmed, the vineyard looked completely different than what we imagine in a regenerative system, right? So in the past, the vineyard was maintained like a golf course. It was mowed, it was cultivated. There's a certain look that a vineyard has or
Hmm.
has to has.
It's like neat
Uh,
and tidy and uniform and
and
clean.
unif and clean. It's also a business card when people come up that you show, and it's deeply ingrained in the generation that farmed previously vineyards. Uh, when we imagine a vineyard, we are shooting for complexity. I'm shooting for complexity in cover crops. I'm shooting in complexity of the ecosystem. I'm shooting in complexity of beneficials, biodiversity. I'm shooting for all of that, not because I think it's cool. I think it's cool, but I'm shooting for that because complexity equals climate resilience. We are hit with heat waves. We are hit with heavy rains. We are hit with all this craziness in the last few years. And in my personal opinion, complexity allows us to create a system that can deal with all these extremes. So if you embrace complexity, that comes with the results that you have a bit higher grass there, and that you have a bit flowers there, and that you have bit bushes there, and that you have a bit birds there, and that it a vibrant ecosystem never looks like a golf course.
Hmm.
And I think these are the discussions that we have currently to find the middle ground, of a maintained vineyard. With a maintained vineyard versus really, really biodiverse, flourishing vineyard.
Mhm.
So that's what we're working on. That's what we're working on currently, and where we have a lot of discussions around it.
This episode is brought to you by Savory's growing community of regenerating members, listeners like you who care about real solutions for our global grasslands. Over the past decade, the Savory Institute has helped restore more than 100 million acres through holistic planned grazing, creating productive and resilient landscapes where fertile soils lead to healthy food and thriving communities. But this kind of impact is only possible with support from people like you. For just $10 a month, less than the cost of lunch, your support can help restore nearly 400 acres of land every single year. And as a regenerating member, you'll join our global community of over 600 like-minded people committed to making real change where it matters the most. You'll get access to Savory's private online network, a free holistic management online course, discounts from partner brands, and even opportunities to connect with Alan Savory. Signing up is fast, easy, and it makes a real impact. Just visit savory.global/member, that's savory.global/member, and start making an impact today. Aside from the aesthetic piece that people expect a vineyard to look neat and tidy, and you guys have taken things in a more wild and complex way. Um, Aside from that aesthetic piece, are there any trade-offs or additional pieces that need to be considered now that you have livestock coming in before bud break, that you no longer have the short plants there underneath the vines? What are there new challenges that have come about that you've had to learn how to deal with that previously weren't on the table?
There's constantly challenges. So I mentioned that before. It's a process. It's an evolution, and I would like to put a focus on the outcomes when we discuss about that, because we are not implementing practices without knowing what we're doing. We're making trials. We measure, and we look at what kind of impacts that our trials actually have
Mhm.
on our system. So it is not like we close our eyes and we just do. We try and go from there. The challenges that we face are always different. So the first challenge that we had, I think, was we had a strong focus on soil health, and then after soil health, John Kempf mentioned on one of his podcasts, is healthy soil creating healthy plants, or are healthy plants creating healthy soil? And that was one of these. Geez, we are taking Haney tests and do all the stuff in the soil, but we didn't really look at our plants.
Mhm.
So let's have a look at the plants. So we started taking sap. It's like a blood draw where you have all the breakdowns of nutrient levels, and that you can actually see in real time if they run out, or how good or how sufficient that they are. And what we realized during these tests is, when we compared soil and plant, is that we have nutrients in the soil that we don't have, or where we have a lack in the plant. And that's one of the challenges that we face. For example, we have a lot of iron in our soil, but we have a deficiency in our plants. So challenge, how do you bridge this gap? All
How do
right.
you?
So I don't know yet. So these are the challenges. We're supplementing the wines during the growing season with foliar applications. So you can, like you supplement yourself, you can
Mhm.
supplement the plants, but that's not something that goes back to the root cause. So the quick fix I know how to do. The long-term fix I'm still working on. A second challenge that we faced is we went to 100% ground cover, and we diversified our cover crop to as many species and perennials and plant families, especially plant families that support each other. So what we didn't assume, probably because we are naive, is that perennials, especially orchard grass, is growing tremendously high. And it's just hard to control. So it's an absolutely perfect sheep feed, but we can't have our sheep in there, really, really long into our growing season because of bud break. So now we have an orchard grass explosion, and we just have to mow and 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 to mow. So
This
didn't
isn't,
expect that.
I'll say in the regenerative world, this isn't or I guess generally speaking, you don't hear folks complaining about we had too much grass, our grass was too
Yes,
high.
yes.
So it sounds like a good problem to have. But okay, so you were having to mow it down because you couldn't bring the livestock in to
No, no,
biologically
no, no.
mow it down.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a perspective, right?
Hmm.
From a sheep perspective, and from feeding sheep, orchard grass is the best thing that you can have. All right. From carbon sequestration point of view, living roots, living deep roots, perennials in our ecosystem, it's a really cool thing to have. But in the same time, we're farming a crop pretty much at the edge of the west coast, so we are hammered by weather extremes, meaning also really extremes like snow or frost, late frosts. And if we have really high grass in our vineyard, we don't have airflow.
Hmm.
We don't have sprinklers. We don't have any other possibility to prevent frost damage. So airflow is our only thing that we have up on the ridge. So we really have to mow the shit out of it. That please excuse that we have airflow. Yeah.
So have you changed your cover crop mix then to move away from the orchard grass?
You can't get rid of orchard grass. So if you have it, you have it. So our solution is now that we have sheep. I think our next thing is that we bring sheep in way earlier. That they start grazing this orchard grass as early as possible to weaken the root system, and then hopefully the other plants are creating enough competition that we can control it. So.
Mm. So you were saying that you've done sap analysis to
Mhm.
get a sense of what's going on in your grapes and in your vines. And you've done EOV to get a sense of what's happening at the soil surface for the short term monitoring, and then what's happening in the soil itself for the long term monitoring. Um, I guess I'm curious, are there any specific indicators or things that you've learned either through the SAP analysis or through the EOV data that has really pointed out to you where things could change or pointed you in a direction that you otherwise wouldn't have gone? Like, what's
It's
the most meaningful indicators that you've seen either through the SAP analysis or EOV?
I think it's an indication of the whole. It's I think the sap is really interesting on a plant basis. That led to the next step to sap flow pruning. But the outcome base was a focus on the ecosystem. And I think every data collection that we do are giving us more knowledge about the whole ecosystem. Uh, in the same time, I'm aware that everything is changing every year, and that creates a complexity where data is really helpful, but it's not. We can't read the data and can just say that's uh, that's the solution. I think the data is giving us a trajectory that we are running in the right direction.
Hmm.
Because also with the last few years that we have in viticulture, we had 1 year where we had an extreme late bud break at the end of April. We had an extreme cold season until June. Then we switched into heat waves. We had a really late harvest where we had to go through rains with our fruit, really nerve-wracking. It was a big thriller. And then the following year, we had a normal bud break and then got hammered with heat waves and picked 2 weeks earlier than in a regular year. So I think it's all about trajectory.
Hmm. Now, with the increased focus on regenerative practices and soil health, terroir is the name of the game in wine. Everyone talks about terroir. It's literally the land is what it's speaking to. Um, do you see any changes in the terroir of your wines based on improved soil health and increased complexity of the whole?
Yes, I see most of the change because of dry farming practices, uh, which we had, which my parents-in-law actually implemented. So I'm a big believer in that. When you dry farm, you connect your wine with the ground, right? You want to have deep, deep, deep roots that go deep down, that are spreading all over the place, that are getting all the nutrients, that are connected with the microbiome and with fungi and with everything that lives down there. Uh, and when you irrigated wine, when you ever pulled an irrigated wine, you see that the roots go down and then are in the top foot and go along the dripper.
Mm,
So less connected with the ground. So the biggest impact in complexity actually, flavor profiles, and just resilience was turning off the water, definitely.
mm. I'm realizing that we've, gone into what it is that you guys are doing, but we didn't really set the stage for what is the norm in the wine industry for wine growers. Could you give us a sense of what conventional practices look like in winemaking? Just to kind of frame where you guys are in comparison to the status quo. I know there's a section on the Dirt Wine website that is titled something along the lines of challenging the status quo. So
Mhm.
just want to get a sense of what that, I think the term you used earlier in the interview was hardcore industrial agriculture. What does
Yes.
hardcore industrial agriculture look like in wine?
The same, pretty much the same how it looks like in agriculture, industrial agriculture itself. So you have really tight spacing of the vines. You cultivate a lot to get rid of weeds. You fertilize to get as much out of the wine as possible. You irrigate uh, to get as much out of the wines as possible, and you spray a lot of synthetic chemicals to control pests and disease. So you can build pretty much a bridge between viticulture and regular agriculture.
How does that translate into the end product that the user is consuming?
That's a that's an interesting question because somehow consumers care, or there's a big discussion about the food that you eat, that you put in your body, but there's not a lot of discussion about the wine that you drink. Somehow, there's a disconnect. You have wine in your glass, but it's disconnected that it's actually an agriculture product. Uh, I don't have hard data on that. I have strong beliefs on that. I have strong beliefs that an agriculture system should be able to survive without irrigation, for example, especially in viticulture, where you could actually set it up like that. So you could choose the right rootstock, you could choose the right planting density. So you can do that for most parts in California, and with a perspective of the climate, with the climate extremes that we're facing, is I'm also thinking that a long-term perspective, and to create a system that is climate resilient, that can sustain itself, that can deal with heat waves, that can that can deal with droughts, is something that is essential.
Is that something that you see in other vineyards with the increased rate of climate extremes that we're seeing, that is affecting um, crop yields or quality of grapes or things of that nature?
Oh yeah, and it will tremendously. Heat waves will change flavor profiles of grapes tremendously. So I think an awareness of that in the wine industry, and I think there's quite some movement. For example, to try ground cover in vineyards. I think there's a realization that when it's outside over 100 degrees and the ground is also 100 degrees, that's not really beneficial for the whole system. So yeah, I think there's an awareness. There's a lot of trials with new grapes, varieties that are do better in hot climates. There's a lot of trials with trellis systems that create umbrellas and stuff, but the majority is still farming in a way that is focused on crop loads and mass, and not quality.
I think I saw on your website an article where it was mentioned that in some sustainable certifications, and no names were named, but there are 70 plus additives that are allowed in wine, and they don't have to appear on the label. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, that's general in winemaking. In winemaking, over 70 additives are allowed by law. Uh, Sulfur is one of them. Yeast is another one of them. And then we go farther. We have products out of fish bladder or egg whites to find the wine. And then we have products like Velcorin. It's a sterilizer that is lethal when you put it in the wine. Transforms in the wine, but there's really bad stuff that you can actually use in the wine industry, and the wine industry is not required to declare anything on the bottles except sulfites. So, and I strongly believe you deserve to know what you drink. I strongly believe that as a wine industry that is really tackling some headwinds at the moment with the lack of engagement with younger consumers, that we actually should look in the mirror and actually ask ourselves with what generation are we dealing with? You know, it's a generation that is turning around labels. It's a generation that requires or that wants transparency. It's not something that you provide as an added value. It's a fucking requirement. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there's quite a need for transparency in the wine industry.
Yeah.
Additives are one thing. Another thing is chemical residues in wine. Another thing is sustainable certifications that still allow the use of glyphosate, for example, and other synthetic chemicals, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Mm. And so, with this radical transparency that you're kind of getting at, my understanding is that's a key tenet of your latest venture. I mean, we've talked about Mariah Vineyards, where Nicole has grown up, but then Dirt Wine is the latest venture that you guys have launched, a new brand of wine. And I know transparency is one of the key tenets of that. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Dirt Wine?
Uh, yes, we want to inspire a future of wine that is clean and that is radically transparent and that is nature positive. Uh, a future of wine where this generation that we spoke previously can actually align their values with the products that they drink, and a wine that fulfills their requirements. When I speak about clean, that sounds really idealistic, but it's a wine that is tested for 572 chemical residues. It's a wine that is farmed without the use of synthetics, chemicals, fungicides. It is a wine that is verified by Land to Market based on regenerative outcomes, and not just empty claims. It's a wine that works closely with family farms, with the California Alliance of Family Farmers. It's a wine that is dry farmed, so that actually tries to show that there's a path possible next to the industrial system that we have.
So you mentioned other family farms. So are the grapes going into Dirt Wine? Are these being sourced from beyond Mariah Vineyards?
Not yet.
Not yet, but plans to expand.
So we purchased the fruit from our parents. So we farm and we purchase the fruit from Mariah Vineyards. When you speak about radical transparency and the step that we are doing with Dirt Wine, and to go out and to speak about the intransparencies out there, I think it's important that you know what you're talking about. And I'm only doing that because I farmed this place now for 7 years, so I can tell you what we did up there in the soil, with the wines to the crop and then through the cellar and then to the glass. So it's a wine. It's a wine that I'm proud of, and that can be challenged. So.
Mhm. I had a quote that I wrote down, and I don't know if you said it or if Nicole said it, but the quote was, "It's ironic that an industry that speaks so highly about terroir somehow hasn't really focused on the dirt." And that I think speaks volumes. And so I'm wondering, this new Dirt Wine brand, are you using this as a way to educate consumers on the connection between plant health, soil health, human health, and the essence of terroir and everything that's involved? Is that part of what you're going for here?
Yes, absolutely. We believe that the wine is a really interesting product, actually, to push for better agriculture systems. Wine is a product that has quite a spectrum. You can buy it in a box, but you can also buy a $1,500 bottle from a winery. So there's a tremendous spectrum. There's a tremendous communication platform with sommeliers, master sommeliers, podcasts, and so everybody has an opinion about wine. So I think we are in a really interesting position to bring up these topics and to see if we can bring some transformation to wine in California or beyond. Yes.
Mm. Do you see the wine industry either from a grower's perspective or from the consumer perspective? Is there, I guess you've been land to market verified since 2021. So, I mean, you guys were the first ones to be land to market verified. Since then, others, around the world have come on the scene, and there is a host of new regenerative certifications that have all, kind of jumped onto the stage as well. And so I'm wondering, has the industry shifted at all? And is there an increased willingness to go in the regenerative direction, either from the producer side or the consumer side in terms of consumer demand?
And there's a tremendous passion for regenerative viticulture out there. So there's several vineyards that are going in this path. They were always biodynamic vineyards that were working in a similar path. So I think there's really good vineyards and wines out there that are really trying to push the needle and showcase what's possible out there. With all this positivity and with all this transformation, there's also the greenwashing coming down the line, and I think we are pretty far in that in viticulture. I think how do you say that in English? The bird in the coal mine, or
Oh, the canary in the coal mine.
the canary in the coal mine. I think viticulture is at this point. I see a lot of posts about we are regenerative, and then you have glyphosate sprayed wine rows in the back, and I think it's a disservice that the word regenerative was never defined properly. I know that there's efforts going on currently in California. I know that it's a wide open definition of the word, and we are pretty much there where the word regenerative is going in a direction like the word sustainable. It's a
Hmm.
nice word, but it's quite a spectrum what sustainable means,
Yeah.
from good execution to, yeah,
Yeah. Well, and
just
you were
greenwashing.
saying that there isn't a good definition of regenerative agriculture out there. And there are a lot of folks that are trying to define regenerative agriculture, but
Mhm.
when they do, they are defining it as a set of practices. Regenerative agriculture means cover crops, no-till, biochar, compost application, what have you. It's a focus on actions rather than a focus on outcomes. And that, I think, is where a lot of the greenwashing and trouble comes in, because someone then who is, say, doing no-till on a cropping operation, or they're doing rotational grazing, whether it's done well or done poorly, and everyone's raising their hand and saying, yeah, 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 I'm regenerative, see this practice I'm doing. But practices don't necessarily equate to outcomes, and regenerative by definition means creating more life, like getting better over time, the living system developing more complexity and more life because of the management that it experienced. And so that shift from practices to outcomes, I think, is a really important one. And whether you encapsulate that in a definition of regenerative agriculture or not, I mean, you'll notice ecological outcome verification, EOV, land to market verified, the word regenerative isn't used in any of those. And that was kind of by design at the outset of these programs, because we kind of saw the writing on the wall that regenerative was starting to pick up momentum, and folks, you know, corporate interests, all the usual players were going to come in and try to plant their flag and get some of this new exciting trend that they see without actually doing the legwork or fully jumping in with both feet. So I guess that's a cautionary tale on definitions, because if you define something in a very certain way, you can define it in a certain way so as to game the system, i.e. greenwash. But if you kind of zoom out and say, all right, what are we really trying to go for? We're trying to increase the complexity and improve ecosystem function. So like, let's look at the outcomes, and how did you get there? It doesn't matter. Let's be practice agnostic and say whatever way that you can come in and improve the outcomes on your land base, whether it's a vineyard, an orchard, a pasture, what have you. That's ultimately, I think, um, what we all are striving for. Um,
Yes, and it's about context, right? So
mhm.
so I think that's a different layer. Where I farm, I have over 80 inches of rain, right? The practices that I use are in my context. So that doesn't mean that a vineyard in Paso Robles can do exactly the same what I do. So just because it's the right practice. So I think it's really site specific, and it's extremely context
hmm
context
Yeah.
specific.
And when you're focused on outcomes, it allows the land manager to make decisions in context rather than saying, no, 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 I have to follow these guidelines, which say I have to do A, B, and C, and I'm not allowed to do X, Y, and Z. That, kind of boxes people in, and really limits the creativity that they can apply in their land management. So, I'm sure what you guys are doing at 2,400 feet in a dry farmed vineyard is going to be very different from someone who is more, at sea level, and has a different type of soil, and different variety of grapes that they're growing. I'm sure all of those factors come into play. You were mentioning something about the additives and everything that are allowed in wines, and I guess what I'm curious about is, what would you advise the consumer who is wanting to source the best possible wine? Of course, go and buy dirt wine, go and buy Mariah Vineyards. That's, that'll be recommendation number one. But say they're not able to purchase your product. What sort of things should they be looking for? Or what sort of questions should they be asking, from the wine grower or at their local wine shop? What can they be doing to ensure that they are buying the highest quality product as possible for the land and for themselves?
Just in general, demand more. Just in general, as you mentioned, ask questions. Ask questions which additives were used. Did you farm with chemicals? How is your operation working? You do it in food. You deeply care. You go so far that you know your farmer. I think it would be wise to know your wine farmer as well, and as your winery. And if you don't have the capability of doing that, of asking questions, and of digging deep, and then buy organic wines, grown organically, because they're working in a positive direction. So
Hmm.
for me personally, it's always important. Chemical residues are a topic that are deeply that I deeply care about it. So for me, it was always organic, uh, or how to figure out, or ROC, or biodynamic, or just to choose a wine from a system that is not using chemical sprays.
Yeah. Okay. So there are good, reputable certifications beyond land to market verified, obviously, that folks can be looking
I
for.
I just didn't mention land to market because we are not really widespread, you know.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah. We're
So
getting
there's
there.
a so in wine, you know.
Hmm.
So there's a land to market is really widespread in the ranging
Hmm.
in grasslands, but not so far in viticulture.
Yeah.
So I'm eager to change that. So
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
Demeter has kind of been the big one in viticulture, right? In terms of Demeter certified, that's how you know if something is biodynamic. I know that's what,
yes,
prior to you guys coming out with land to market verified wine, that's what I would always look for. But it seems like
yes.
there are some reputable pieces to look for. Okay, so that's on the consumer side, like what you would recommend to consumers. What about for other wine growers? Um, what would you recommend to them if someone, say, is listening and they are interested in kind of shifting their management in moving things in a more regenerative path? Where would you recommend folks start, or what advice would you give to them?
Everything starts with a conversation. I'm really intrigued. I'm really intrigued. The wine industry it's a really really cool industry. Really really personable, good people. And on my 5, 6, 7 year journey in the regenerative field, I never had a situation where somebody didn't answer my phone. So in the beginning, how we started was with a baseline. So that's point one: get measurement and see where you are. So that's definitely the first step. Because then you know your soils, and you know which cover crops to plant, and you know about cheap integration, and you know all of that stuff. So the baseline is definitely the first step, and then the second step is reach out to your buddies or to people that do cool stuff that you know, and start a conversation. We were really blessed that we had the possibility to discuss constantly with Paul Dolan about that. We reached out to Kelly Mulville. We had chats with Kelly Mulville. We visited several vineyards that were doing good work. And then we went back, looked at our results, and started trials.
Mm.
Started small trials, a few rows, see what happens, and then if it's good, then change the whole operation.
Were there any trials that you guys did that failed? Anything that you tried that you thought would be successful that wasn't?
Several,
Any
several.
favorites?
No, not favorites, but I believe that action creates information.
Hmm.
So even if it's a favor, even if it's a failure, you get information out of it, and it was always a stepping stone for the next. So, for example, in currently we're doing underwine trials with low growing flowers to attract beneficials. So I mentioned before that we have really really high orchard grass. So now we are looking if we can replace this orchard grass underneath the vines with low growing flowers that creates beneficials, and that we have beneficial insects in our vineyards and have, you know, natural natural supporters that we don't have to spray as much, right?
Hmm.
So and that's a trial at the moment. So we are far from figuring out which species is good, what does work, and then how do we bring that to scale. But it's always uh, just an experience and the learning curve. So we figured out now a few flowers, and then it's the next step, and then it's the next season, and then in the end we have pollinator habitats underneath our wine rows.
Hmm. Are there any other things kind of emerging in the regenerative viticulture space? You mentioned at Piscinus them working on higher trellises that allow for 365 days a year of
Mm-hmm.
grazing. I'm wondering if there's any other innovative approaches that folks are piloting, or new technologies that you've seen. Anything that sparks your curiosity that you're interested to learn more about?
There's a lot going on. One of the topics is bottle weight. The biggest carbon footprint that you have in a winery is your bottles, actually. So it's not the farming side, it's actually the bottles. And we have bottles in the wine industry that are 500 grams or more, right? So there's a shift to alternative packaging. The path that we choose with dirt wine is a bottle that is around 390 grams. It's still capable to ship in boxes with break and all the stuff, not an issue, and a tremendous step forward. Actually, could be implemented from way more, but it's a process. Another innovation that is going on is ground cover is a topic. The realization that heavy tillage is not a solution for climate extremes. Big discussion currently if you can do that in dry farm systems or not. Sitting on an advisory board where we have these discussions, where we actually dig soil trenches 6-7 feet down to see where the roots are, and we measure water moisture content. So absolutely fascinating. So a really push that is going on there, and the big investment to figure out how we can support farmers to irrigate less with the current systems, and how to plant future systems that are less reliant on water. That's really cool. Crimping is something that a lot of vineyards are trying in the moment, where you don't mow your cover crop, where you actually crimp. You lay down the cover crop. So, and several other things. The transparency piece is the innovation, if you can call it innovation, that I would wish that we would work a bit more, because I recognize that there's a lot of cool vineyards that are doing a lot of really, really cool stuff. And it would be a service for consumers to actually know which ones are the ones that are pushing the needles, and actually show which ones are doing not. So,
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I guess I'm wondering, as we start to wrap up here, now that you have, for a number of years, you and Nicole have farmed at the vineyard she grew up at, Mariah Vineyards, and now you have launched your own line of wine through Dirt Wine with Transparency. I'm wondering what's next. What's coming down the pipe? What do you see next, either for Mariah or Dirt Wine or beyond?
there's two things. There's the farming side. The farming side is a rabbit hole. I recognize that I will never achieve perfection, never. And that's part of the beauty of farming. So we continue on our trajectory. We increase complexity. We support our ecosystem. And we see on an annual basis how more comes to life, and how more biodiversity that we have, and how the system can deal with heat waves and climate extremes. Absolutely stunning. So there's a lot there that we can do. So currently, the pollinator habitat, where we try to break up the monocrop with hedgerows on one side, and then the trials underneath the wine rows. That we can plant pollinator habitats in the monocrop. So there was an interesting study from Miguel Altrieri. He was a professor at UC Berkeley, and he showed that beneficial insects can jump about 20 meters into an agriculture system, from flowering plant to flowering plant. So it is our goal to create flowering plants every 20 meters. And that's quite a journey, I can tell you that. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. And then the long-term vision is nutrient density. I would love to track flavor profiles of Mariah vineyards compared to viticulture in California itself.
Hmm.
I reached out to several people. I know that it's possible, but I also know that the costs uh, extend my budget, let's say it like that.
Yeah.
But I believe that if we could show that regenerative viticulture has an impact on flavor outcomes, flavor profiles, that dry farming has a tremendous impact on the flavor profiles, on an expression of terroir in the grape, and then through the fermentation process into the wine. I believe that could be stunning. So,
Someone you should perhaps reach out to there is Dr.
it,
Stefan von Vliet. I don't know if you've followed
no,
his work at all. He's done a lot of incredible research lately. I actually want to get him on the podcast to talk about this,
cool.
but he has looked at and here's where I might get the language wrong, so apologies if I do, but he's doing an analysis beyond macronutrients and micronutrients that you would find he's largely looking at beef and dairy, animal products.
Yes,
Um, but he's looking at secondary metabolites, I believe, which
yes,
number in the thousands, if not millions. And so
yes,
he's getting a very deep look at the nitty gritty differences of how one piece of meat would compare to another, and looking at the difference between, say, grain fed and grass fed,
yes,
and the nutritional profile, not just at that micro and macronutrient level, but at a much more granular level. Really interesting stuff. And he's doing this in conjunction with the Bionutrient Food Association,
yes.
their beef study that's going on now. But I would bet that either Dr. Von Vliet's work or Bionutrient Food Association
I
or
reached out. I reached out
Dacia's.
to the Bionutrient Food Association and also Dacia's and stuff. So I'm following. I'm following that.
Hmm.
But it's, you can say it's ridiculous to think about that in wine, right? It's not a product that you eat and stuff. But because we are in a position with this communication platform, and because we really care about terroir and have a language around that, I
Hmm.
think it would be extremely interesting and the shift in conversation when we would speak, for example, in the dry farming space, not from, you know, you can reduce irrigation, you can do blah, 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 uh, lesser impact and stuff. If we could change this conversation and could say, look, that's the outcome on your fruit, in the world of wine, if you can prove or if you can
Hmm.
show the impact on the fruit quality and on the wine quality, I think that would be an absolutely game changer.
Yeah, because terroir at this point is purely subjective. It's, you're trusting
Mm,
what a sommelier says. I mean, at least I am. I don't have as refined
yes,
of a palate to be able to put words to
yes,
what I'm experiencing in my mouth. But if you could put data behind
mm-hmm,
terroir, I think that opens up a
mm,
whole world of possibility. That would
yes.
be fascinating.
But also on the side of farming, so
Hmm.
I believe that if you can show that dry farming creates way more expressive fruit, it's a
Hmm.
no-brainer how you plant the vineyards of the future. So the terroir expression, that's a really hot topic actually. It's a hot topic. Some say it's a myth. Uh, some say no. A fact is that there's sommeliers that can pop a bottle in blind tasting, and can tell you the variety, can tell you where it's coming from, can tell you the producer, can tell you the vintage. So it's absolutely crazy. So I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Why we're not doing it in other agriculture systems, I don't know, because I think you could do that with similar impact.
Yeah, I mean,
So
imagine a comparison of
mm,
the terroir of
mm,
meat.
mm,
Here's beef that is grown, on Savory's bison ranch on the shortgrass
Mm,
prairie, and then here is meat that comes from a more coastal, humid,
mm,
non-brittle area,
mm,
and then here's one. Yeah,
mm.
I think that would be fascinating. And again, I don't have
Yeah.
the refined palate to be able to tell
Yes.
the differences of those things, but I'm sure some folks are. I mean, there's super tasters, right? People whose
Oh,
taste
it's
buds literally can do more than what the average
that
human.
can do more and that memorize and that are memorizing a tremendous amount of wines and that can open the file and can recognize it, and it's absolutely fascinating.
Mm,
So that's the future. That's the future that I see in farming. So I will never be bored. It will be constantly evolving. It will be constantly making mistakes. It will be constantly having some kind of successes. But the trajectory is definitely a more resilient, flourishing ecosystem. And then on the third side, I think I'm really committed to transparency. I'm struggling currently to find the right tone, how to create transparency in an industry that you love
offending it.
without offending it. Yes, so that's currently a learning curve that I'm have and that we're figuring out. But as more as you communicate and the feedbacks that we're coming back, the more we're learning and adopting. And then definitely to inspire a future of wine that is chemical residue free, that is nature positive. I'm also not speaking of regenerative. I'm speaking of nature positive based on outcomes, and that is so transparent, and that consumers can really align their values
Yeah.
and cut through all the bullshit that is out there.
Yeah. Well, here's to that. I wish you the best of luck on the journey. And so I guess to
Thank you.
close, where can folks buy your wine? And if they are not able to buy your wine, where can they at least follow your work?
They can connect with me on dirt-wine.com. That's our website where they can read about what we're doing, where they can purchase wine. We are active on social medias. I'm happy for everybody that is jumping on. It will take a village. It will take a village to create transparency. It's not a single attempt. It's a shared effort. So I'm happy for everybody that jumps on and that provides me with a following and real-time insights what we can do better.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you sitting down to chat today and everything that you guys are doing. You and Nicole, it's been wonderful to have you guys as partners over the last couple of years, and really incredible to follow along your work. And of course, thank you for creating such a delicious, incredible product that we can enjoy and commune with. So
Uh, Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
everything.
Thank you very much for having me, and always happy to push land to market in viticulture and to support you guys. I'm deeply committed to outcomes.
You're here. All right. Cheers, my friend.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Ruminations is a production of the Savory Institute, the Savory Foundation, and Land to Market. If you like this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and subscribing to our YouTube channel, where you can find video versions of all episodes plus other content. Many thanks to Travis McNamara, who composed and performed our theme music. If you're looking for show notes, links to things mentioned in the episode, transcripts, or more, all that can be found on our website at savory.global/podcast. And last, but certainly not least, thank you to our committed and growing community of regenerating members whose monthly support allows Savory to produce this podcast and continue advancing holistic management all across the globe. If you're not yet a member, we would love to have you as part of our community. Just sign up at savory.global/member. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.